Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Objective. And today we're going to be continuing discussing the topic from yesterday's episode titled Football Shrugged. And whenever we bring up football, of course, Americans like myself are a little bit confused. Wait, the NFL? What happened with the NFL now? And then people say, no. Football. We mean football. We mean like what you call soccer. But then we're even more confused. We're like, wait, why are we talking about high school girls sports? By the way, please leave us a like before 90% of the world sees this episode and gives their opinion. Leave us a like. Please consider super chatting us your opinion as well as support. And please consider becoming an Ayn Rand Center UK member to help this thing grow and get access to exclusive content and study groups with some wonderful thinkers, including some of the people here today. Now let's meet them. These are guys all passionate about the topic we're here to discuss. They're going to tell me why I should care, but more importantly, they're going to flesh out this topic, which is making a lot of noise right now. This is a big deal, guys. So first off, we've got a guy who, I used to call him the last of the Greeks. Now I call him the Greek myth. The man, the myth. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with him, how this controversy changes his intellectual development. He actually discovered objectivism something like 3-4 months ago, and he's already considering leaving, but might actually increase his seriousness about it. I'm completely making facts up right now. Please don't take any of it literally. It's Nikos Sotirakopoulos.
Thanks, Rucka. And before you go on to the introduction, another message to the American audience. This is not about football. This goes way beyond football, and this is something super important in understanding where we are, where the pendulum of allowable opinion and what the dominant philosophy is. But more on that in a while. But don't tune out, even if you don't even know whether football is played with hands or with legs, although the cue is in the title. Still, this should be something that should be of interest to you because this is way beyond football.
It is. That's why it becomes interesting to me. I mean, I watched yesterday's episode, and at first I'm like, okay, who cares? But then, okay, I see why I can abstract something from this that has nothing to do with the game itself. Next up, we've got a guy who it's always a treat to have on. He's normally behind the scenes, Lord Emperor himself. It's Razi Ginsburg. How you doing, Razi?
Hey, Rucka. I thought I'd be calm by now, but I keep looking at the reactions and I'm not. But other than that, I'm doing well, and I'll elaborate later.
Well, whatever it takes to get you on the show, I say. And then we've got a guy who I don't think he's been on an episode with me before, but he's a regular at the Ayn Rand Center UK. He is a scholar. He is a gentleman, and I'm presuming he is a football fan. Please welcome Greece's very own, the last of the Greeks, George Grigoropoulos.
Hey guys, good to see you.
No, I'm not talking to you, Nikos. I'm talking to George. Oh wait, that's George. Sorry. Anyway. The beard is what I need to check for. Anyway, so Eddie, Nikos, you're kind of heated up about this. Can you explain to me what's developed in the last few hours or the last day or whatever? What's the update and how you feel about it, and lead the way, please.
So the big picture is that everyone is seeing this as a battle between some greedy businesses that are trying to create something like a cartel and the rest of society. So the reactions have to do with stuff, with slogans such as football is the sport of the people. You are taking the football away from the people. You are taking our favorite game away. Because again, if you haven't watched yesterday's game, some big clubs, 12 of the biggest clubs who are facing huge economic problems because of the pandemic, but not only of that, want to create a closed league that is going to replace Champions League, which is international club football at the level of Europe. The new development is that, except that every single person has expressed their disgust with this development, we even have companies. Domino's Pizza made a joke about, we're going to create a new European Super League pizza. It's going to have greed, betrayal, and something like that as ingredients. Every single, and when I say every single pundit, no matter how much money they've made out of football, suddenly they realize that, now it's all about money and this is not cool. But the most shocking development for me is that I've counted at least 3 heads of states that have made that have declared not only that they disagree with that, but today, for example, we had the Prime Minister of the UK, Boris Johnson, for people who are lucky enough not to be involved with UK politics. This is supposed to be a quote neoliberal. This is supposed to be someone who won because he stood for freedom, whereas Jeremy Corbyn was standing for socialism. So this party of the Tories, which is basically the Labour Party with fancier suits, as I call them. So this Prime Minister said, no action is off the table, and we're exploring every possibility to ensure these proposals are stopped. So we've heard rumors that he's gonna stop the police from policing the grounds, not allow the players to enter the country without the COVID restrictions at football, things like that, and other measures that, it's a direct discrimination, so it's possibly even illegal, but forget the illegality thing. So you have a prime minister saying that I am going to stop some privately owned clubs from doing what they want with other clubs. And also there have been discussions that we need to include in this country the rule that applies in Germany, which says that 50% of a club's, let's say, ownership is to the fans. And again, this comes from a conservative government. You have a conservative government saying, here we have a conflict. The greed of the few goes against our communities. Football is so important for our communities. This is very unjust because it doesn't give the chance to the underdog, and therefore something needs to be done. So you have Corbyn, for example, who wants to nationalize, I don't know, energy. And here you have Boris, who basically wants to nationalize, or is even discussing de facto nationalizing or putting under government control some of the biggest football clubs in the country. That's why I said it's very rare that you get a highlight of where the philosophy is, where the dominant ideas are. And the dominant ideas that, if you dare say that I need something to make more money and to save my business, then you need to have the whole society against you and even the power of the state against you. And my question is simply this to people. If you had a struggling business and someone told you, I'm going to give you 3 times the income that you now have, honestly, would you say no? Because that's exactly what happens in with these teams. Their collective debt is around £5 billion, billion with a B, and they chose this new league, which I'm very skeptical about. I don't think it's going to be such a great idea, but that's none of my business. But that's the way they found to address this issue. But turns out they can't, because each one has a say, and each one of us apparently has a say, and the prime minister could use force to stop that.
Didn't even the royal family, someone from the royal family, they even like, they don't step in usually on major political developments. Their role is seen as purely, I don't know, kind of
symbolic,
more symbolic than functional. But still, they decided that this was an important matter to express an opinion, right? Was it Prince William?
Yes. So he also said how concerned he is. And because again, this is a topic that doesn't even need to discussion. It's greed versus who knows what else. Therefore, we know which side we're on.
Yeah, Razi, how are you feeling?
Yeah. So first of all, Sammy and Chris in the chat, if you're discussing Boris's hair as a way of trying to get me to defend him, that's not going to happen. But actually, who deserves to be attacked most on their reaction to this I'm struggling with that, because some of the footballers, I think we'll get to them later, but some of the footballers, the past footballers who made their millions and are now upset with others making their millions, deserve I will say what they deserve later in the episode. But yes, Boris, in one of the stories, it says that the prime minister says no action is off the table. This type of language, this type of strong language is something we never hear when it comes to, fighting terrorism or crime. But it is when somebody wants to make more money, that's when everybody is sort of united against them. And we have heard in the UK from quite a few government ministers, and Nikos, the example of the government stepping in to make it, make clubs 50% fan owned. You mentioned Corbyn. I think in Labour's manifesto for the 2019 election, there was something about companies from a certain size upwards having to be 10% owned by the government, right? So that was in the proposal in case Labour won the election. So I sometimes quote one of my favorite Bosch Foston quotes about Republicans are socialists, and I think that applies to conservatives here. But I'm not sure the slow part still applies if they actually are saying, no, we will step in, we will stop this, we will not send police to these games. That's such, it's so shocking and scary how government thinks that this kind of intervention in the economy is, in any part of it, is legitimate.
First of all, if you're a liberal, you should know that there are things that are off the table because that's supposedly your ideology. The ideology that says nothing is off the table for the state has a different name, and I don't recall it being
but the language, the sort of strong type of language. So yeah, that exact statement, although put in the right context, it depends. But yeah, it's just the they're so principled on this. They're never principled on anything. But the government and unfortunately the many of the fans are united on this, and
very interestingly, outside of Anfield, the ground of the stadium where Liverpool plays, there was a flag with a stickle and hammer. It was basically the Soviet Union flag, and it had the message against this, and it was considered something like that. Yeah, that's very cool. Football is the game of the people. And anyway, I'm so baffled by all this because you could see in an election, let's say Corbyn getting a huge percentage, and you understand, oh, that's where we are. But this is even more important than an election because it's a topic which it doesn't openly political, but it tells you exactly what you need to know about, again, where the battle of ideas is. And perhaps the biggest historical injustice in this country is that Corbyn didn't win the elections. The country is 100% ready for Corbyn. The ideas in the country deserve Corbyn 100%. And I had this discussion 2 years ago in the elections. Razi considered it completely wrong, but I think I'm completely vindicated. Anyway, let's hear also
Jeff.
from George.
But quick, thank you, Jeff, for the $5 Canadian super chat. He says, keep it up.
We will.
Thanks, Jeff. So there's 3 points I'd like to make. First one is that the teams, the football clubs that are facing financial difficulties now are not facing the financial difficulties because of the pandemic. They're facing those difficulties because of the measures that governments took in response to the pandemic. Had people been allowed to take their own decisions about risk, whether they want to attend football matches or not, and however they want to react to the threat, maybe these teams wouldn't be in such difficulty right now. So we cannot 100% say that these are not problems that were caused by governments. The next point is around the pointlessness of such restrictions, such efforts to basically restrict the clubs from doing what they want to do. The argument goes like this: we are not letting you do this because you will destroy the football game for the rest of us. Well, that on its own as an admission proves the point that the big clubs are making. If by them departing and going and doing something different, they are devaluing so significantly the rest of the establishment, this tells you everything you need to know about how important they are, and therefore exactly why they want to leave. If, on the other hand, the argument is, well, if you leave, nobody's going to watch it because there is no appeal to it anymore, because no small teams will be able to compete, and therefore you won't get a chance to see the sort of underdog story that came from humble beginnings and managed to beat one of the big clubs. So this will all make it pointless and everyone will be disappointed. Fair enough. It's a fair criticism. Maybe it will happen. And if it does happen and nobody wants to watch the big clubs, then what's the point in getting politicians to try and stop them from doing it? They will come back by themselves anyway, because they will fail. So either way, the involvement of the government to try and restrict, to try and stop this project is pointless. But the main point here is about individual rights. And football clubs are not theory. They're not something that exists only up like in our realm of ideas. They are made up of people. They're made up of people, of owners, of management, of their creditors, banks or other institutions that have lend money to them so that they can provide us with the service that they do. So all of these people have some input into the decision-making process. By denying them the right to do this, we are denying them the freedom of association. They want to play with specific teams. They don't want to play with them. That is their right. Just like we have come to the conclusion that forcing people into labor is wrong. It's called slavery. We abolished it. Just like we have come to the conclusion that forcing two people that don't want to be together mutually in a marriage, because that would be, rape, effectively. We need to recognize that this is the same when it comes to business entities. If two business entities want to trade with each other and with each other alone, and they don't want to trade with other people outside of the two entities, 3, 4, 10, whatever it is, the number doesn't matter, then so be it. The government has no role to force them to, has no position. It's not the position of the government to deny this individual right to the people that are involved in those things, and to tell them, no, you have to play with everyone I tell you to instead. So these are the 3 points I wanted to make.
Ed in the super chat with €5/pounds, I still don't know the difference, says Rio Ferdinand is James Taggart, football edition. I cannot confirm nor deny that.
Well,
but
I can confirm, because that's a good segue into my next point. Actually, Rio Ferdinand was second on my list, just because, but it was a close call, because Gary Neville and I think normally we can make points with without using profanity, but I think it's I think Gary Neville has earned being called a piece of shit over his insane rant. Well, you guys can disagree with me. His Marxist rant, after he has again made millions and earned those millions. He was a great footballer. Now he's complaining that others are going to be making more. He's talking, about football belonging to the fans, about the workers setting up Manchester United 100 years ago. It's really despicable. And by the way, he I'm sure he's well off as a TV commentator as well. So, again, this is somebody getting into what is not their business and demanding that others basically sacrifice in a way that he himself refuses to do. Rio Ferdinand said similar things. He pissed me off a little bit less. So
we'll see how zealous you are when your channel gets demonetized, by the way, for swearing. Now,
by the way, I don't
ahead.
think that's fair, because if you think that every socialist is what you said, then basically your opinion is that 98% of the population, which has proven.
I'm talking about somebody who has benefited from in his career as a footballer from a major change in football that was designed to make players and clubs richer, which was the Champions League. That came about during his career, right?
Right. But someone being wrong is not the same as being a piece of whatever. So
no, but somebody using the position he is in, and the position he's in because football was capitalist enough to allow him to be that rich, make that much money, be that successful, is now using it against others. That is, to me, something that I think he deserves that. We can agree to disagree, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he deserves it, but anyway.
So this topic is obviously very difficult to untangle because we have a similar situation in America with the Major League Baseball doing something that has to do with voting. They're taking a stand one way or the other. And then we're seeing Josh Hawley, the Republican SOB, I'll say, he is speaking about it's time to invoke some antitrust, right? America's contribution to the world, right? So many great things, but of course, we also had to invent antitrust, the most arbitrary of all law types, the law category that is completely up to somebody's mood and arbitrary whim, and is basically introducing the downfall of capitalism by the stroke of a pen in the late 19th century, in my understanding of things. Josh Hawley saying we need to use antitrust legislation against, quote, big tech. And he says we need, and maybe Major League Baseball should not be exempt from antitrust protection, like or violation laws. They're exempt because when you think about it, yeah, Major League Baseball and National Football League and NBA, the Basketball Association, they get to have a monopoly basically on their sport, or it's not really a monopoly because anyone else can attempt to create their own league, but nobody's breaking them up is the point, right? They collude, the different teams collude with one another. And they are exempt from being broken up by force and prosecuted in various arbitrary ways. And Josh Hawley is saying, oh, if Major League Baseball wants to take a stand on politics, maybe they should not be exempt from antitrust laws. And I say they should be exempt from antitrust laws, but so should everybody else. You like that, Republicans? You like that, Josh Hawley? So, okay, but my point here being, it's difficult to untangle this situation. So people say, oh, well, I mean, antitrust is an example of laws that shouldn't be on the books on the first place. But on the sort of positive side, people can say, well, these stadiums are subsidized. You know, the teams, they get loopholes. The owners are, they're getting tax deductions by, the current tax rate. All these various ways that people say that the teams and or owners are given favors by the government. And in some cases, they're correct. I assume it's 10 times worse in Europe with the various incestuous relationships between private companies and politicians. So I will offer you, we need to remind people with every sentence that we are trying to divorce business from government other than where actual crimes are committed. So no regulations, no subsidies, and ideally no taxes. If the people can't pay for a stadium voluntarily, then sports fans have a problem, huh? You don't need to subsidize the stadium, and they should not subsidize it.
We discussed yesterday we did a Clubhouse special before the Daily Objective on this topic as well, and I mentioned how the governing bodies of European and world football, UEFA and FIFA, as well as football associations in the different countries, are sort of definitely UEFA and absolutely FIFA are super corrupt organization, and they sort of exist in the corruption sweet spot between, being actual government and having some oversight, and being not government but completely in bed with government. So which is why, for example, as I think mentioned yesterday, the World Cup next year, which is the type of tournament you generally need a big country for, because you want a bunch of stadiums in different cities. Next year it's in Qatar because the Qatari government put money in the hands of people who didn't deserve it, which apparently is what the people want. The people want undeserved wealth, rather than deserved wealth. One other thing, there was and now I see why Nikos researches these topics before episodes, because I've been trying to look this up during the episode and couldn't find it, so it's kind of from memory. But there was somebody from one of the clubs who one of the 12 clubs who issued a response today, and he said something like, "We are not backing down. Our main objective is to maximize profits. We knew there would be backlash," and all of this makes me very optimistic that they will stick to their guns, in which case UEFA and FIFA will back down, as will the local leagues, or they will crumble, or of course they will use government power. But they cannot. UEFA and FIFA will ultimately not win in a fair fight with the big clubs.
My prediction from yesterday stands. I think they're gonna back down at the end, because the idea that these people are greedy and they only care about money, that's not the case. These people are not impervious to the culture. But I'll say one last thing, and then we're gonna get final words from George, and we can move to Clubhouse. If I were the owner of these clubs, and I would see, for example, these reactions, tomorrow I would leave. I would say, you know what, for example, I made Liverpool the best Liverpool team in the history of the club, which puts the bar very, very high. And that's what I get. Okay, sure. I don't want to take away from you. I don't want to take away from you, this sport, which apparently belongs to the masses. So to quote Ellis Wyatt, I leave it as I found it. It's yours.
Wait.
Let me finish, please. By the way, this happened to one of the most historic Greek clubs, Panathinaikos. So there was this big family, and all the fans were so furious with this family. And there was a big protest, and the family, the Vardinogianni family, was kicked out of the club. This happened in 2008. Since then, Panathinaikos has won 3 trophies, the last of which was in 2014. What a historical act of justice. Panathinaikos was in the elite of Europe. They had reached the semifinals of the Champions League twice in something like 12 years. They reached the final in 73, something like that. No, wait. Anyway, at some point, many, many years ago. And actually, they got what they deserved. And I really wish these people had the self-esteem to say, oh, are we the greedy ones who are destroying football? Okay, we're leaving. I'm very looking forward to see who would take over Liverpool, and whether the people who now don't like these owners in all of these teams, they would be happy, for example, with no one being able to pay Messi, because Barcelona has a debt, which is basically, Barcelona is the Greece of European football when it comes to its finances. I would like to see Juventus. I would want to see the Agnelli family leaving and Cristiano Ronaldo going playing somewhere else, and Juventus going back to dark days. I'm very curious to see if this is what the fans want, but that's what they deserve. And also, I'd want to see money taken out of football and try to see how pundits are going to make a living. Anyway,
So,
George.
Nikos, I saw yesterday on Twitter somebody say, "Oh, every tweet that I've seen, is against this." As if here's the proof that the people are against it. Why are you assuming that the loudest Liverpool fans represent all of them? I guarantee you that if this goes ahead next season, from the first game in August and every single game, Liverpool Stadium will be full. So There is no question. Maybe, yeah. And again, there will be those who will, not go to games and protest, and that's fine. But yeah, I would not leave if I was the owner of Liverpool.
I would leave today and make a statement about it. I would throw an Ellis riot.
That statement would be, I agree with those fans who say the club belongs to the fans, because the fans are against the policy that I set, and I am giving them what they want. I don't agree with that. And
Anyway.
again, these people don't represent all the fans. They represent the loudest ones.
George, final thoughts.
Well, I had to think about what you said about the owners leaving the clubs. And, I mean, it is an option. I don't know if it's the best option for them, but supposedly they are passionate also about the teams. And I don't understand this rule that says 50% should be owned by the fans, because supposedly, or I would presume that they may be fans. How do you judge how much of a fan someone is or not? But let's assume that this happens. Let's assume that for whatever reason, either they leave or they don't. Even if they stay, these football clubs end up being in a financial difficulty that they cannot overcome, right? So they end up like that. And then they fail. What's going to be the next argument? We should get them bailed out by the government. No, that's the thing, because the government tells them they cannot have fans in the stadium. So they're in trouble financially. Then they say, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do something about my finances to survive. So I'm going to create another league. No, you're not allowed to do it. And then they say, okay, then they will fail. And then the government comes up and says, oh, now I'm the benevolent charitable organization. I care about you, so I'm going to rescue you and I'm going to bail you out. This is a vicious cycle, and it's obvious, not just in football, but in any sort of business endeavor. And we need to get out of it. We need to break free, either at the bailout stage, at the restriction stage, whatever it is. Anytime this happens, it needs to be stopped.
Just on the point of how do they decide who fans are? I think there's in some places it's like season ticket holders, and in others it's you need to be some sort of a club member, much like the Ayn Rand Center UK that has a membership which you can join if you click the link in the live chat.
Many ancient people would not have believed that someday Israelis and Greeks would be bonding and having a civil discussion over something that brings them together.
Well, not always civil, apparently, because my co-discussant is using unacceptable for me language. But anyway,
let's say non-violent, at least. Okay. And the thing that brings us all together is capitalism, the pursuit of happiness, which may include football, but individualism at the end of the day, reason, rational selfishness, and that is what we're about here. And the more we detract from all of that stuff, the more you see people feeling entitled to one another's property, saying these professional athletes are my personal show monkeys that I own, rather than autonomous individuals living their own lives. So ideas matter, everybody. So you'd better remember that and better pay attention to your own. Thank you for joining us.
Greek-Israeli conflicts. Today is the anniversary from 2000 when Panathinaikos beat Maccabi in the EuroLeague final, having as their best player at the end a guy who was the legend of Maccabi, Oded Katas.
I was at that game.
What?
I was there.
Oh, you were there in Thessaloniki. Oh, right.
And if the Greeks had shown that kind of skill when they invaded Israel around 500 BC, then we could all be speaking Greek today and living in laissez-faire paradise. So why don't you do less bragging and more self-reflecting, I would offer the Greeks. Thank you all for joining us today. This was a wonderful episode. Wonderful to have George as well as Razi. What a treat. And obviously Nikos Sotirakopoulos, the Greek myth himself. We're jumping over to Clubhouse. Clubhouse, the app on the iPhone, maybe coming soon to Android. Join us there. We'll see you there right now. Thank you. And we'll be back here tomorrow, same time on the Daily Objective. And goodbye.
Why does he